cruel, merciless, unforgivable. The girl hung from a tree like something no decent man should ever see, her wrists bound tight above her head, her bare feet trembling in the dry Wyoming heat. Her dress was torn with dust clinging to the fabric, her breathing shallow, her voice almost gone from hours under the sun. Beneath her, a sharpened wooden stake stood upright in the dirt, dark at the tip, freshly smeared with pine tar that hadn't fully set under the dry Wyoming heat like it had been placed there not long ago. This wasn't meant to kill her right away. It was meant to make her understand what would happen if she didn't obey. Out here, men didn't always kill fast. Sometimes they let fear do the work first, and fear, when it's done right, can break a person long before anything else ever touches them. And a man stepped closer, slow and steady, eyes locked on her body, as if he was about to do something no one would forgive. Elias Crow did not rush. He never did. Elias Crow was a man in his late 30s, weathered by 15 hard years in the mountains. The kind of man who spoke little and remembered everything. From a distance, any man watching would swear he was sizing her up, taking his time, deciding how to use what he had found out there on the open prairie. A lone mountain man, a young girl tied and helpless, no witnesses close enough to stop him. It looked wrong. The kind of thing people whispered about in saloons after too much whiskey. Clara Whitcomb tried to lift her head, her lips cracked, her voice breaking as she saw him step closer into the shade of the cottonwood. She did not scream for help. She did not beg. She whispered something else. "Don't. That place is still wet." Her eyes dropped toward the ground beneath her. Not toward him, not toward her own paint, but toward that freshly tarred stake planted right under where her body hung. Elias stopped mid-step, just for a breath. Then he looked down. The wood had been freshly cut. The earth around it was loose, and the tar smeared along the tip still shined under the sun, thick and sticky, not yet dried by the heat. This was no accident, no wandering cruelty, no drunk men passing by. This had been planned, carefully, recently, and meant to send a message. He lifted his eyes back to the girl, studying her face, the marks on her arms, the way the rope had been tied with a ranch knot, tight and practiced, not the work of fools, the work of men who knew what they were doing. From a distance, though, none of that mattered. All anyone would see was a grown man standing too close to a helpless girl, a man leaning in, a man about to touch her, and that was how the story would begin. This story is retold from old accounts, with a few details shaped to bring out the truth, the lesson, and the weight of what happened. The images are AI-assisted, used only to help the feeling land a little deeper. If this kind of story is not for you, it's all right to step away. But if something here pulls you in, stay with me. It only gets heavier from here. Now back to that tree. The wind barely moved across the field. The grass stood still, dry and yellow, stretching out toward the low hills beyond Crazy Woman Creek. Not a single voice carried across the land, just the creak of rope. Claire's arm shook again, her strength fading fast, her body slipping lower with every breath she struggled to take. She knew she would not last much longer like this, but still, she had warned him. Not about herself, not about the rope, about the ground beneath her. Elias crouched slowly, careful not to touch the stake. He could smell the pine tar now, sharp and fresh, not something that had been sitting out for days. Someone had put this here not long ago, someone who wanted it seen. Or worse, someone who expected someone else to come looking. From the corner of his eye, he caught something else. Tracks, boot prints, more than one man, and the mark of a wagon wheel pressed into the dirt nearby. This was no random act. This was a warning, or a trap. He stood again, this time closer, close enough that Clara could see his face clearly. Not cruel, not eager, just calm. Too calm for a man in a moment like this, and that alone would make people talk later. Because calm men in bad situations are the ones others fear the most. Clara swallowed hard, forcing out one more breath. "They'll come back," she whispered. Elias did not answer. He reached for the rope. From far away, it would look like the worst thing a man could do, a stranger touching her. A stranger taking control of the only thing holding her up. A stranger about to decide her fate, and somewhere beyond the low rise, unseen eyes were already watching him step in, watching him reach up, watching him become, in their story, the villain they needed. Elias wrapped his hand around the rope. His other hand hovered near the knot. He paused again, just long enough to look down once more at that freshly tarred stake beneath her. Then he made his choice, and the moment he did, everything that followed would be twisted into something else, something darker, something no one in Buffalo would ever believe the truth about. So tell me this, if you were the man standing there, with a dying girl above a sharpened stake, knowing the truth would turn the whole town against you, would you still cut that rope? Elias cut the rope, not slow, not careful, fast. The blade flashed once, clean and sure, and the tension snapped loose in a breath. Clara dropped. He caught her before she hit the ground, pulling her away from the stake without letting her feet touch that dark, sticky wood. Her weight hit him harder than he expected, light but limp, like she had already used up most of what little strength she had left. For a second, it looked worse than before. A grown man catching a young girl before she hit the ground, keeping just enough distance to steady her without pulling her close. Most people wouldn't have seen the truth in that moment. Elias didn't waste time thinking about how it looked. He moved. He carried her a few steps away from the tree, away from the stake, then set her down gently on the dry grass. Her legs trembled when they touched the ground, and she nearly collapsed again. Easy now, he said, low and steady. She tried to stand. She couldn't. He glanced back toward the rise beyond the creek. Still no movement. Still no sound, but that didn't mean anything. Men who set traps like this didn't wander far. He crouched beside her and pulled a small canteen from his belt. "Drink," he said. She hesitated for half a breath, then took it with shaking hands. Most of the water spilled before it reached her mouth, but enough got through to bring a little life back into her eyes. "Name?" he asked. She swallowed hard. "Clara." He nodded once. "Elias." That was all either of them needed for now. He reached for her wrists next, turning them gently to check the rope marks. Deep, fresh, too tight for too long. Not a warning, not just that. This had been meant to hurt. Clara flinched, but didn't pull away. She watched him instead, like she was trying to decide if she had traded one danger for another. "Who did it?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted back toward the tree. "Toward that stake." "Men from my father's ranch," she said finally. Elias didn't react. Not on his face, but something behind his eyes settled into place. "Your father know?" he asked. Clara gave a weak, tired laugh that didn't sound like it belonged to someone her age. He ordered it. The wind picked up just a little then, enough to stir the grass and carry the smell of pine tar across the field again. Elias stood. He walked back toward the stake, careful where he placed his boots. He didn't touch it. Didn't need to. The wood was fresh cut. The tar was new. The ground around it had been dug and packed in a hurry. He scanned the area again. Wagon tracks, 2 horses, maybe 3. Men who came and did their work and left thinking the job was done, or thinking no one would come this way. He turned back to Clara. "You got family in town?" She shook her head. "Not anymore. That your father's name you're carrying?" She nodded once. "Whitcomb." That name meant something, and men like Whitcomb didn't move alone. They had lawmen who listened when money spoke. Elias had heard the Whitcomb name before. Not much, but enough. Cattle, land, money that didn't come easy. He looked out toward Buffalo. Just a faint line of buildings somewhere beyond the hills. This wasn't just a family matter. This was something that could reach further than one girl tied to a tree. "You can ride?" he asked. Clara tried to stand again. This time she managed, barely. "I can," she said. "Good," he replied, because they were out of time, and out here. Running late usually meant you didn't get a second chance. From the ridge beyond the creek, a shape moved, then another. Elias saw it before Clara did. 2 riders, maybe 3, coming slow but steady, keeping low like they didn't want to be seen too soon. "They're back," Clara whispered. Elias didn't answer. He was already moving. He grabbed her arm, not rough, but firm enough to keep her on her feet. They moved toward his horse, tied just beyond the patch of green near the tree. The animal shifted nervously. Sensing the tension before either of them said a word, Elias untied the reins in one clean motion, swung up into the saddle. Then he reached down. "Come on," he said. Clara hesitated for half a second, not because she didn't trust him, because she knew what this meant. If she climbed up behind him, there was no going back, not to the house, not to the life she had before, and whatever came next would not be easy. The riders were closer now, close enough that she could see the outline of a hat she recognized. Jeb Rourke. Her breath caught. That was the man who tied the rope. That was the man who pulled it tight. She didn't hesitate anymore. She took Elias's hand and pulled herself up behind him, gripping tight as the horse shifted under their weight. Elias kicked the horse forward. They didn't sprint, not yet. Running too soon would give them away. He kept a steady pace at first, angling away from the tree, away from the open ground, toward a narrow line of brush that led down toward the creek bed. Behind them, a voice carried across the field. "Hey." It wasn't a call for help. It was a call to stop. Elias didn't look back. He didn't need to. He already knew what those men would see. A mountain man, a young girl clinging to him, riding away from a place where she had been found tied and helpless. They wouldn't see the truth. They would see exactly what they wanted to see, and they would carry that lie straight into Buffalo. Clara tightened her grip around his coat, her voice low against his back. "They won't stop," she said. Elias nodded once. "I know." The creek bed came into view ahead, dry in places, shallow in others, winding through the land like a scar. He leaned forward slightly, guiding the horse down the slope. Dust kicked up behind them. Now they were running. And once they started, there was no slowing down. Elias didn't look back. Men who look back too soon usually don't make it far. Out here, you either commit to the run or you don't run at all. Not until they were far enough away that the truth had a chance to breathe, or until the lie caught up to them first. So here's the question that matters now. When a whole town is ready to believe the worst about you, how far do you have to run before the truth has any chance at all? The horse didn't slow down until the creek bent out of sight. Elias guided it into a narrow stretch of dry brush where the ground dipped low and the dust settled quicker. He pulled the reins just enough to bring the pace down, not stopping, just easing off so the animal could breathe. Behind him, Clara still held tight. Not like someone scared of falling, like someone who knew if she let go, everything would fall apart. "You still with me?" he asked, not turning around. "I'm here," she said. Her voice was steadier now, not strong, but no longer breaking. That was something. Elias let the horse walk a few more yards before finally stopping under a thin patch of shade near the creek bank. He slid down first, then reached up to help her. This time she didn't hesitate. Her feet hit the ground, but her legs gave out almost right away. He caught her again. Slower this time, lowering her onto a flat rock near the water. No rush now, but no safety either. He stepped back just enough to give her space, then crouched near the edge of the creek, scooping up a handful of water and splashing it over his face. The heat was starting to settle into his bones. Clara watched him for a moment, then looked down at her own hands. The rope marks were darker now, angrier. "They'll tell it different," she said quietly. Elias didn't answer right away. He already knew she was right. "They'll say I ran off," she continued. "They'll say I've been meeting you out here." That got a small breath out of him. Not quite a laugh. "Wouldn't be the first time folks made up their own truth," he said. She looked up at him. "Does it bother you?" He shrugged once. "Simple, only if I let it." That answer stayed with her for a second, because she didn't have that choice. Not really. If a man got a bad name, he could ride to another town, start over, be quiet about it. If a young woman got one, it followed her everywhere. Elias stood and walked back over to the horse, checking the saddle, the straps, the small bundle tied behind it, everything still in place. He untied a piece of cloth and brought it back to her. "Wrap your wrist," he said. She took it and did as told, slow but careful. Every movement still hurt, but she didn't complain. That told him more than anything else had so far. "You said your father ordered it," Elias said. She nodded. Why, Clara took a breath. "This part cost her more than the pain, because I turned 18 last week," she said. "My mother's will takes effect now. She made sure the land couldn't be touched until I came of age, and she warned me never to sign anything my father put in front of me. And that means the land is yours now?" Elias asked. Clara nodded once. Yes, there it was. Simple, clean, ugly in the way truth usually is. Elias leaned back slightly, folding his arms. "What kind of land?" he asked. Clara looked toward the direction they'd come from, toward the stretch of ground near the tree. "Not big," she said, "but it has water." That was enough. Out here, water was everything. Didn't matter how many cattle a man had or how wide his fences ran. If he didn't have water in summer, he had nothing. Elias nodded slowly. "So he needs you out of the way," he said. Clara gave a small, tired smile. "Not gone," she said. "Just quiet." That sat heavier than anything else she'd said, because it meant this wasn't meant to kill her. Not yet. It was meant to break her, make her easier to control, make her easier to speak for. Elias looked back toward the ridge again. No riders in sight now. But that didn't mean they'd given up. Men like that didn't quit. They circled. "You got papers?" he asked. Clara shook her head. "My mother had them," she said, "before she died. And now my father says they were lost." Elias exhaled through his nose. "Things don't just get lost like that," he said. "I know." She replied. There was a quiet stretch between them then. Not awkward, just heavy. The kind of silence where both people are thinking the same thing, but neither one says it out loud yet. Finally, Elias spoke again. "There's a place," he said. "Old records, military post, Fort McKinney." Clara looked up. "They'd have something. Maybe," he said. "Maybe not." That was as close as he got to hope. She studied his face for a moment. "You're not from here," she said. "No." "Then why help me?" Elias didn't answer right away. He looked out across the creek, at the dry land stretching beyond it, at the kind of place where a man could disappear if he wanted to. "I saw something that didn't sit right," he said. "That's usually enough." Clara let out a breath. Not relief, not yet, but something close to it. A start. Elias moved back toward the horse again, tightening the saddle one last time. "We don't stay long," he said. She nodded. "Where to?" He looked toward the north. "Fort McKinney," he said. Then he added, quieter, "before your father decides to come looking himself," because that was the part neither of them had said yet. Men like Silas Whitcomb didn't sit back and wait. And when they came for something they believed was theirs, they didn't send just hands. They came in person. So before we ride further into this, if you're still here with me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Keep this story riding with you all the way to the end. And while you're at it, pour yourself something warm, take a breath, and tell me what time it is where you are and where you're listening from. Now let me ask you this. If the man hunting you isn't just powerful, but patient, how long do you think you really have before he catches up? The sun was still high when they rode out again. No clouds, no mercy, just heat pressing down on the land like it meant to keep everything in place. Elias didn't push the horse too hard. Not yet. Running blind across open country was how men got caught. He kept to the low ground where he could, following the bends of the creek, letting the brush break their shape from a distance. It wasn't fast, but it was smart. Clara held on behind him, quieter now. Not because she felt safe, because she was thinking. That was the difference. Fear made people loud. Thinking made them quiet. After a while, she leaned forward just enough for him to hear her without raising her voice. "They won't come straight after us," she said. Elias nodded once. "They'll split," she added. "One group goes to town. One tracks us," and he glanced slightly to the side. "You've seen this before," he said. She didn't answer right away. Then, soft, Yes. That told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't the first time her father had gone looking for someone. The land opened up ahead, stretching wide and dry, broken only by a few scattered trees and a long, worn path cutting north. The road to Fort McKinney. Elias slowed the horse again, scanning the ground. Tracks. Fresh ones. More than just cattle. He shifted in the saddle, leaning down just enough to get a better look without stopping. 2 wagons had passed through earlier that day, heavy, loaded, and at least 4 riders. He didn't like that. Company's been through, he said. Clara tightened her grip slightly. Who don't know yet, he replied, but they weren't hiding. That meant one of 2 things. Either they didn't care who saw them, or they believed they owned the road. Neither was good. Elias guided the horse off the main path, angling toward a narrow stretch of trees where the ground dipped again. Safer there, harder to track. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the steady rhythm of hooves and the dry rustle of grass brushing against their legs. Then Clara broke the silence. If we find something at the fort, she said. Will it be enough? Elias took his time before answering. Depends who's holding it, he said. And if it's already gone, she asked. Then we find who took it, he replied. Simple, direct, not easy. But nothing about this was going to be easy. They rode another mile before the land began to shift. The ground rose slightly, and the brush thinned out. Bad place. Too open. Elias felt it before he saw it. That quiet kind of wrong. He slowed the horse again. Hold tight, he said. Claire didn't ask why. She just did. Up ahead, near a broken fence line, something moved, then stepped out. A man. Hat low, hand resting near his belt. Behind him, another shape, then another. 3 riders, blocking the path. Elias didn't stop. Not yet. He let the horse walk forward a few more steps, slow and steady, like he had every right to be there. The man in front lifted his chin slightly. Afternoon, he called out. Elias gave a small nod. Afternoon, he answered, no tension in his voice, no rush. Just another man on the road. For a second, it almost worked. Then the man's eyes shifted past Elias to Clara. That was all it took. Recognition hit fast. That her one of the others said. Elias didn't wait for the answer. He turned the horse sharp to the left. Knew it. The first man snapped. And then everything broke loose. Gunfire cracked across the dry air. Not close, not yet. But close enough. Elias leaned low over the horse, guiding it down a narrow cut in the land he had spotted earlier. The ground dropped fast, forcing the horse into a hard descent that slowed the riders behind them. Hold on, he said. Clara didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her arms were locked around him now. Behind them, hooves thundered, men shouting, but they were losing ground. Not because they weren't fast, because they didn't know the land like he did. Elias pushed the horse through the cut, then angled right, cutting across a patch of dry rock where tracks wouldn't hold. That bought them time. Not much, but enough. After a few minutes, the sounds behind them faded. Not gone, just distant. Elias slowed again, listening. Nothing. For now. He exhaled slowly, then glanced back just enough to check on Clara. You good? He asked. She nodded against his back. Still here, she said. There was something different in her voice now. Not fear, not even just survival. Something sharper, like she'd crossed a line inside herself and wasn't going back. Elias faced forward again. Next stop's the fort, he said. Clara took a breath. And if they're already there? He didn't answer right away, because that was the question, the one that mattered. If Silas Wickham had already sent men ahead, if the papers were gone, if the story had already been told before they even arrived, then this wasn't just a race anymore. It was already lost, and they just didn't know it yet. So let me ask you this. What do you do when the truth you're chasing might already be gone before you even get there? The land began to rise again as the afternoon wore on, not steep, just enough to make a man feel it in his legs and his lungs if he'd been riding too long. Elias kept the horse moving steady, not fast, not slow. He wasn't trying to win a race anymore. He was trying not to walk into one. Fort McKinney sat somewhere ahead, past the low ridges and dry bends of land that all looked the same if you didn't know what you were doing. Elias knew enough, but not everything, and that was the problem. Clara shifted slightly behind him. "You've been here before?" she asked. "Close," he said. "Not often." She nodded, like that answer told her more than it sounded like, because men like Elias didn't go near places with records unless they had to. Too many questions in those places. Too many eyes. By late afternoon, after hours in the heat, the fort finally came into view. Not grand, not impressive, just a cluster of weathered buildings, a flag barely moving in the heat, and a few men going about slow work like the day had no urgency at all. That was a good sign. If something had already gone wrong here, the air would feel different. Tighter. Elias slowed the horse as they approached, letting it walk the last stretch. No reason to draw attention. Not yet. A soldier near the entrance glanced up as they came in. Older man, not much interest in anything that didn't concern him directly. Elias tipped his hat once. "Afternoon," he said. The man nodded back. That was it. No questions. No trouble. For now, Elias helped Clara down again. She landed steadier this time. Still tired, still hurting, but standing. That mattered. "Stay close," he said. She didn't argue. They walked toward one of the smaller buildings, the kind used for records, supplies, things most people didn't care about until they needed them. Inside, it was cooler. Dust hung in the air, caught in thin lines of light through the windows. Behind a worn desk sat an older man with glasses low on his nose, flipping through a stack of papers like he'd been doing the same thing for years. Elias stepped forward. "Looking for old land records," and he said. The man didn't look up right away. "Everyone is," he muttered. Then his eyes lifted, slow and sharp despite his age. Name's Clara stepped forward before Elias could answer. "My mother," she said. "Mary Whitcomb." The name landed. You could see it. The man paused just long enough to matter. Then he leaned back slightly in his chair. "Been a while since I heard that name," he said. Clara swallowed. "You remember her?" The old man gave a small nod. "Hard not to," he said. "Quiet woman. Knew what she was signing." That last part hit different. Knew what she was signing. Elias caught that. So did Clara. "Did she file anything here?" Elias asked. The man stood slowly, joints stiff, and walked toward a set of shelves along the back wall. "Depends what you're looking for," he said. "Transfer of land," Clara said. "Or water rights." The man ran a finger along the spines of old ledgers. "Plenty of those come through here," he said. Then he stopped, pulled one out, set it down on the table. The sound of it hitting wood was heavier than it should have been. He flipped it open, turning pages slow, careful, like each one mattered. Finally, he stopped. "There," he said. Clara stepped closer, her hands tightening slightly at her sides. Elias leaned in just enough to see a name, Mary Whitcomb, clear as day. Below it, lines of writing, details about land near Crazy Woman Creek, water access, and then a note, not the full document, just a record that something had been filed and something had been taken. "Where's the rest?" Clara asked. The old man didn't answer right away. He adjusted his glasses, reading the same line again like he didn't quite like what it said. "Removed," he said finally. "By who?" Elias asked. The man looked up at him. This time, there was no slow movement, no distance, just a straight answer. "Authorized retrieval," he said. Clara shook her head. "No," she said. "My mother wouldn't have." The man raised a hand gently. "Not her," he said. Silence filled the room for a second. Then Elias spoke. When the man glanced back down, 2 days ago, that was it. That was the moment everything shifted. 2 days. That meant someone had already come through here, already known what to look for, already taken the one thing Clara needed most. Clara stepped back slightly, like the ground had moved under her. He knew. She whispered. Elias didn't correct her, because she was right. Silas Whitcomb hadn't just planned ahead. He was ahead. By days, maybe more. Elias closed the ledger slowly. Anyone you remember, he asked. The old man hesitated, then gave a small shrug. Men come through here all the time, he said. Hats low, names quick, work done, not helpful, but honest. Elias nodded once. Appreciate it, he said. He turned, already thinking ahead, already shifting the path in his mind. Clara didn't move, not yet. Her eyes stayed on that page, on her mother's name, on the space where something important used to be. Elias stepped closer to her. We're not done, he said quietly. She looked up at him. There was something new in her eyes now. Not fear, not even just anger. Clarity. They took it. She said, yeah, Elias replied. But they didn't erase it. That was the difference. Paper could be taken. But truth had a way of leaving marks behind, and Elias Crow was the kind of man who knew how to read them. He glanced once more around the room, at the shelves, at the dust, at the places where something might have been moved too quickly, because if someone had come through here in a hurry, they might have left something behind. And sometimes what gets left behind tells you more than what gets taken. So here's the question now. If the one piece of proof you needed is already gone, what kind of mistake would your enemy have to make for you to still win? Elias didn't leave the room right away. He stood there, still, like a man listening for something others couldn't hear. Clara watched him, confused at first. The paper's gone, she said. What are we waiting for? Elias didn't answer. He stepped back toward the table, opened the ledger again, slower this time, not reading the words, looking at everything else, the edges, the dust. The way the pages sat uneven near the spine, Clara frowned slightly. What is it? She asked. Elias ran a finger along the inside margin. Someone was in a hurry, he said. She didn't see it yet. All she saw was old paper and faded ink. But Elias saw something else. One page sat just a little higher than the rest. Not much, just enough. He slid his fingers underneath it and lifted. Nothing written there, but the impression stayed. Faint marks pressed into the paper below. Indentations, like something had been written on the page that used to sit on top of it. Clara stepped closer. I don't understand, she said. Elias glanced at the old man behind the desk. You got a pencil, he asked. The man raised a brow, then reached into a drawer and tossed one across the table. Elias caught it and turned it sideways. Then, slowly, he began to shade across the blank page. The room went quiet. Even the old man leaned forward a little as the graphite moved across the paper. The faint lines began to show, not clear, not perfect, but enough. Letters, numbers, a name. Clara's breath caught. That's... Elias didn't stop shading. He kept going until the whole impression came through as much as it could. Then he leaned back slightly. There it was. Not the full document, but a shadow of it. And shadows could still tell a story. Read it, he said. Clara leaned in, her eyes scanning the faint marks. Transfer of water access. Northern Bend. Witness. She stopped. Her finger hovered over one line. A name, she said. Elias nodded. Yeah. She swallowed. I know her. She whispered. That changed things. Elias turned to her fully now. We're Sheridan, she said. My aunt's friend. She used to visit my mother. Elias nodded once. Quick. Then that's where we go next. But something in the room shifted. Not loud. Not obvious. Just enough. The old man behind the desk had gone quiet. Too quiet. Elias noticed it. Men like him always did. He turned his head slightly. The man wasn't looking at them anymore. He was looking past them, toward the door. Elias didn't turn right away. He didn't need to. He already knew. Someone was there. Clara felt it too, that tight feeling in the chest, the kind that comes just before trouble steps in. Word traveled fast when Whitcomb Money was behind it. The door creaked open. Slow, boot steps followed, heavy, confident. Not a soldier's walk, something else. A voice came with it. Well now, it said, ain't this something? Clara froze. She knew that voice. Elias turned then, calm as ever. Deputy Amos Pike stood in the doorway, hat low, hand resting easy near his gun. Behind him, 2 more men. Not lawmen. Just hired hands. Amos smiled slightly, like he had just walked into something he had been expecting all along. Been hearing some interesting stories, he said. His eyes moved from Elias to Clara, then back again. Man riding off with a young girl, he continued. Didn't sit right with me. Elias didn't react. Didn't argue. Didn't explain, because he already knew. This wasn't about truth. It never was. Clara stepped back slightly, her voice tight. He's lying, she said. He's the one helping my father, Amos chuckled under his breath. Now that's a story, he said. Then his tone shifted, just a little, harder. You're coming with me, he added. He wasn't asking. Elias took one small step forward, not aggressive, not threatening, just enough to put himself between Clara and the door. That's so, he said. Amos's hand moved just a fraction closer to his gun. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, he replied. The room felt smaller now, tighter, like the air itself was waiting to see who would move first. Elias glanced once to the side. Window. Too small. Back wall. No exit. 3 men at the door. 1 deputy with a badge people believed in. And a story already spread across the town. He looked back at Clara. She was watching him. Not scared like before. Not broken. Waiting, trusting him to decide what came next. That was new. And it mattered. Elias shifted his weight slightly. Just enough. Amos noticed. His fingers tightened. Last chance, Amos said. Elias exhaled slow, then moved. Fast. Not for the door, for the table. His hand grabbed the ledger and slammed it forward, the heavy book catching Amos square in the chest and staggering him back into his men. Everything after that happened quick. Too quick for clean thinking. 1 man reached. Elias drove his shoulder into him. Another swung. Elias ducked and shoved him into the door frame. Clara moved too, grabbing the pencil and driving it hard into the man's cheek, just enough to make him stumble. Not much, but enough. Enough to break focus, enough to create space. Go, Elias said. She didn't argue. She ran. Elias followed a step behind, pushing through the gap before Amos could recover. Gunfire didn't come. Not yet. Too many people outside, too many eyes. But that wouldn't last long. They hit the open yard, moving fast toward the horse. Elias swung up first, then pulled Clara up behind him in one clean motion. Hold on, he said. The horse lunged forward. Behind them. Amos's voice cut through the air. You just made this worse, he shouted. Elias didn't look back, because he knew that was true. Whatever this had been before, it was bigger now. Louder. And a whole lot harder to survive. So here's the question now. When the law itself is already against you, who's left to believe your side of the story? The horse didn't stop until the fort disappeared behind them. They rode until the light began to fade, then kept going through the dark, following the faint line of the trail by memory more than sight. By the time dawn touched the horizon, both of them were still in the saddle, not just out of sight, out of reach. Elias pushed it hard at first, cutting across dry ground, then slowing only when the land broke into scattered brush and shallow dips again. He wasn't running anymore. He was disappearing. That was the difference. Behind him, Clara held tight, her breath still uneven from the sudden escape, but she didn't panic. Not anymore. She had crossed that line already. They'll come after us, she said. Elias nodded. Yeah, he replied. Not maybe. Not if they would, because now it wasn't just a girl running from home. It was a story. A deputy attacked. A man resisting the law. A girl taken again. That kind of story didn't stay quiet. Elias angled the horse toward a narrow stretch of rocky ground, letting the hooves strike stone instead of dirt. Tracks disappeared there, at least for a while. He slowed to a walk. Catch your breath, he said. Clara leaned back slightly, her hand still gripping his coat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said it. I can't go back. Elias didn't turn. I know, he said. She swallowed. Even if I prove it, even if they believe me, I can't live there anymore. That was the truth most people didn't say out loud. Getting your name back didn't mean getting your life back. Sometimes those were two different things. Elias let that sit for a second. Then he spoke. We're not going back, he said. Simple, clear. That was enough for now. By the first light of morning, the land opened ahead of them in pale gold, quiet and empty, as they rode on toward Sheridan. They were heading toward Sheridan now, not because it was safe, but because it was the only place left that still made sense. Clara shifted slightly. That name, she said, in the record? Elias nodded. You know her, he said. She used to visit my mother, Clara replied. Not often, but enough. What kind of woman? Clara thought for a moment. Quiet, she said, but not weak. Elias gave a small nod. Those were the ones you could trust, not the loud ones, not the ones trying to prove something, the quiet ones who didn't bend easy. They rode another stretch in silence before Elias slowed again. This time, it wasn't caution, it was instinct. Something ahead didn't feel right. The land opened up too quickly, too clean, like it had been used. He guided the horse up a small rise and stopped just short of the top. Then he slid down and motioned for Clara to stay low. I'll take a look, he said. She nodded, staying close to the ground as he moved forward, slow and careful. Elias reached the edge of the rise and looked down. There it was, a small camp. Not old, not abandoned. Fresh fire pit, horses tied nearby, and 3 men sitting in the shade, talking low. One of them leaned forward, adjusting something near the saddle. Elias narrowed his eyes. Not just any men, ranch hands, Whitcomb men. They had moved faster than expected, or they had been sent ahead. Elias stepped back, returning to Clara. They're here, he said. Her face tightened. How many? 3, he replied, armed. He gave her a look. She almost smiled at that. Of course they were. The question wasn't whether they had guns. It was whether they were ready to use them. Clara glanced toward the rise, then back at Elias. They're waiting, she said. Elias nodded. Yeah. That was the part that mattered. They weren't searching. They weren't riding. They were waiting, which meant something worse. They know where we're going, Clara said quietly. Elias didn't answer right away. Because she was right. Fort McKinney, Sheridan, those were the only places that made sense. And if Silas Whitcomb had already thought that far ahead, then this wasn't just a chase anymore. It was a net. Elias looked back toward the camp once more, then down at the ground around them. Options, not many. Go around, lose time, go through, risk everything. Or do something they wouldn't expect. He turned back to Clara. We don't go around, he said. She studied his face. You're thinking something, she said. Yeah. She waited. He didn't rush it. Men like him didn't throw plans together. They let them settle. Then he said it. We go straight through. Clara blinked once. That's not safe, she said. Elias gave a small shrug. Neither is anything else right now, he replied. That was true, and she knew it. He stepped closer to her, lowering his voice just enough. They're waiting for us to sneak, he said. They're watching the edges. Clara's eyes shifted slightly, understanding. If we ride in like we belong, she said. They hesitate. Elias finished, and hesitation was all they needed. Not much, just enough. Clara took a breath, then nodded. All right, she said. No fear in it now, just decision. Elias moved back toward the horse, checking the reins one more time. He swung up, then reached down for her. She climbed up behind him without a word. No hesitation left. That part of her was gone now. Elias turned the horse toward the rise, toward the camp, toward 3 men who thought they had already won this stretch of land. He didn't rush, didn't sneak. He rode straight up, slow and steady like a man who had every right to be there. And for a moment, that was the most dangerous move he could make. So here's what you need to think about now. When the men waiting for you believe they already control the road, what happens when you ride straight into them like you don't believe it at all? Elias didn't slow as they crested the rise. Not a bit. The horse moved steady, hooves thudding soft against the dry ground as they came into full view of the camp below. 3 men, just like he saw before, one by the fire, one near the horses, one standing, half-turned, already watching the ridge. They saw him the same moment he came over. That was the moment everything could have gone wrong. If he flinched, if he pulled the reins, if he looked like a man trying to hide something, but he didn't. He rode straight in, calm. Slow. Like he belonged on that road more than they did. Clara felt it under her hands. That strange kind of calm. The kind that didn't come from safety, and the kind that came from a man who had already decided what he would do if things went bad. The man standing near the fire shifted his weight. "Afternoon," he called out. Elias tipped his hat just enough. "Afternoon," he answered. No tension. No hurry. Just another rider passing through. For a second, the world held still. Then the man's eyes moved, past Elias, to Clara. Same mistake. Same look, recognition creeping in slow. Elias saw it coming before the man spoke. That tiny change in the face, that moment when a thought turns into certainty. "That's her," the man said. Everything after that broke fast. The horse shouldered one man aside, nearly knocking him flat as Elias drove straight through without slowing. No turning. No warning, just speed. One of the men reached for his rifle, too slow. Elias leaned low, guiding the horse between the fire pit and the tied horses, using the chaos to block their line of sight. Clara ducked instinctively, pressing close against his back. A shot rang out, a bullet whining past his ear close enough that he could feel the heat of it. Dust kicked up behind them. Another man tried to grab the reins as they passed. Elias drove his boot into the man's shoulder, knocking him off balance just enough to clear the gap. The horse surged forward, breaking free of the camp and into open ground again. Behind them, shouting, angry now, focused. They weren't guessing anymore. They knew exactly who they were chasing. Elias didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could hear the difference. This wasn't a search anymore. This was a hunt. He pushed the horse harder now, cutting across a stretch of uneven ground that bounced the saddle and forced anyone behind them to slow or risk losing control. Clara held on tight, her breath quick but steady. She wasn't panicking. "Not anymore. They'll follow," she said. "Yeah," Elias replied. No sugar in it, no comfort, just truth. They rode hard for a few minutes, then Elias angled sharply toward a narrow line of trees ahead. Shade. Cover. And something else. A chance. Once inside the trees, he slowed just enough to think. Not long, just enough. He slid off the horse again, fast this time. Clara looked down at him. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Buying time," he said. He grabbed a small knife from his belt and moved toward the ground behind the horse, quickly brushing away part of the track, then leading the horse a few steps off to one side, stepping on harder ground where the marks wouldn't hold. Not perfect, but confusing. Enough to make a man hesitate, and hesitation was everything today. Clara slid down beside him. "They'll still find us," she said. "Eventually," he replied. That word mattered. Eventually meant later. Later meant time, and time was the only thing they were winning right now. Elias led the horse deeper into the trees and then stopped again. He listened. Hooves in the distance. Closer now, but not straight. Good. The tracks had done their job. For now. Clara leaned lightly against the tree beside her, catching her breath. "Sheridan's not far," she said. Elias nodded. "Far enough," he replied, because the closer they got, the more dangerous it became. More people, more eyes, more stories already waiting for them. Clara looked up at him. "You think she'll help?" she asked. "That woman," Elias said. She nodded. He took a breath. "Depends what she's already been told," he said. That was the truth they hadn't said yet. If Silas had reached her first, if the story had already been twisted, then they weren't walking in to help. They were walking into another trap. Clara looked down at her hands again, the cloth around her wrists now marked with dirt and sweat. "They're ahead of us," she said quietly. Elias didn't deny it. "Yeah," he said. Then he added, steady as ever. "But they're not smarter. That was the difference. Silas Whitcomb had money, men, control. But Elias had something else, patience, and the kind of mind that didn't panic when things went wrong." He moved back toward the horse, checking the reins again. "We ride again," he said. Clara nodded. No questions this time, no hesitation. She climbed up behind him like she had been doing it her whole life. Elias turned the horse toward the fading light ahead. Sheridan wasn't far now, but close didn't mean safe. Sometimes it meant the exact opposite. Because if someone was waiting there, they wouldn't be waiting to talk. So here's what you need to ask yourself now. When the next place you're heading might already be set up against you, do you walk in hoping for help, or ride in ready for a fight, not with a sign, not with a welcome, just a change in the land, more tracks, more fences, more signs that people had been here long before you arrived? Elias didn't rush the last stretch, and he never did when something mattered. The morning light lay soft across the road ahead, pale and cool before the heat of the day could settle in. That kind of light made everything look softer than it really was. But Elias knew better. Soft light didn't mean soft truth. Clara sat steady behind him, not the same girl from the tree anymore. Something in her had changed, not broken, not hardened, awakened. The kind of change that only comes when you realize no one is coming to fix your life for you. You either stand up or you disappear. They slowed as the first buildings of Sheridan came into view. People moved in the distance, wagons creaked, voices carried low through the evening air. A normal town, and that was the most dangerous kind. Because in a place like this, truth didn't matter as much as what people believed. Elias stopped the horse just short of the main road. He didn't turn around. "You ready?" he asked. Clara took a breath. "I don't think it matters anymore," she said. He nodded once. "That's when it matters most," he replied. There was a long pause after that. Then something quiet settled between them. Not fear, not doubt, something steadier. Choice. Because everything up to this point had been pushed on them. The rope, the stake, the lies, the chase. But this next step, this one belonged to them. Clara slid down from the horse first this time, not because she had to, because she chose to. She looked at the town, then back at Elias. "Whatever happens," she said, "I'm not running anymore." Elias held her gaze for a second, then gave a small nod. "Good," he said, because running had already taken them as far as it could. Now came the part most people never talk about. Standing still, facing what's been chasing you, even when you're not sure you can win. They walked the horse forward together, side by side now, not one leading and the other following. That mattered more than it looked, because this wasn't just his fight anymore, and it was never just hers. It was something in between, something shared. And if you've been listening this far, you probably feel it too. That moment where a story stops being about what happens next and starts being about what it means. Let me tell you something, friend. There are times in life when you will be misunderstood, times when people will believe the worst version of you. Not because it's true, but because it's easier. You can explain yourself until your voice runs dry. You can show proof. You can point at truth. And still, some people will choose the story that fits their comfort. That's the hard part no one prepares you for. Men I knew back then didn't talk much about it. They just carried it and kept moving. Some of them carried it their whole lives, never saying a word about what it cost them. And if you asked, they'd just shrug and say, that's the way it had to be. I'll be honest with you. If I were in Elias's boots, I don't know if I would have stepped in back at that tree, a man alone, a situation that could ruin his name. Most people would walk away, tell themselves it's not their problem, tell themselves someone else will handle it. But the truth is, in my day, it wasn't the loud ones who changed things. In my day, it changed because of the quiet ones who decide to act when no one is watching. That's a hard kind of courage, the kind that costs you something. Your reputation, your comfort, your peace. And Clara, she could have stayed quiet, could have lived the life chosen for her, kept her head down, said yes when told. A lot of people do, because it's easier to survive than it is to stand up. But survival without dignity is a slow kind of loss. And she chose something else, not because she knew she would win, but because she knew she couldn't live with losing herself. So let me ask you something. Where in your life are you staying quiet just to keep things easy? Where are you letting someone else write your story because speaking up feels too risky? And more importantly, what would happen if you decided just once to stand your ground, not loud, not angry, just steady? Like Elias, like Clara. There's another thing here most people miss. Elias didn't save Clara. Not really. He gave her a chance. But she walked the rest of the way herself. And that's how real change works. No one can live your life for you. No one can carry your truth all the way to the end. They can help. They can stand beside you. But you still have to take the step. You still have to speak. You still have to face whatever comes next. And in my day, men didn't always get justice. But they knew the difference between standing up and walking away. And that difference is what made a man. If this story has stayed with you, if something in it feels familiar, go ahead and hit that like button. Not for me, for the man you're becoming. As a small reminder that you were here, listening, thinking, maybe seeing your own life a little clearer. And if you want more stories like this, ones that don't just pass time, but actually leave something behind, go ahead and subscribe. There's more coming. Stories that don't rush. Stories that stay with you. Before we close this part, I want to ask you something simple. Take a second. Think about where you are right now. What time is it where you're listening, and where in the world are you sitting as this story reaches you? Drop it in the comments. I read them. And it reminds me that these stories don't just live here. They travel. Just like Elias and Clara. Across distance, across time, and maybe, just maybe, they meet someone who needs them at the right moment. Now here's the last thing I'll leave you with. When you finally stop running, when you decide to stand still and face what's been chasing you, you don't suddenly become fearless. You just become honest. And sometimes that's the bravest thing a person can be.